in Mago Reddit. Today's story is
My mother-in-law sent me a 5-page PDF while I was watching over my father. She never imagined that 7 months later her perfect son would be publicly humiliated by this unbelievable twist of fate. This week I lost my dad, and that has become my top priority, not the nonsense my mother-in-law is saying. What affects me the most is knowing that I will never be able to chat with him or share moments together again. My dad had been facing several health problems for a long time. He was receiving medical attention, and although we were aware of his frailty, we never thought it would end so abruptly. My mom, who had spent a lifetime building a life with him, was now alone, just as I am without my father. When we were notified of Dad's death, my brother and I dropped everything to meet at the family home. He was able to get there first because he lives closer. As he lives a few hours away with his family, he simply packed a bag and drove to be with Mum. I, on the other hand, live much further away, so I had to get a flight and organize several things before I could leave. I informed my husband of what had happened, hoping to find support, but his only reaction was to ask, "How many days will you be away?" He showed no concern for my emotional state and offered no comfort. There was no, "How are you feeling?" or "Do you need me to accompany you to help you with the funeral arrangements or to support your mom?" His attitude showed total indifference. He seemed more focused on his own needs than on the death of my father. On the day of my departure, I got up very early, well before dawn. I wanted to leave everything ready for my husband before I left. He is extremely demanding with his meals, almost obsessive. When I don't cook for him, he refuses to prepare anything himself and resorts to takeaway food, which, in addition to being unhealthy, represents an expense that we cannot afford on a daily basis. So despite being devastated by the pain and the pressure, I spent the whole morning cooking for him. I prepared and packed enough meals for the whole week, labeling each container and arranging them carefully in the refrigerator. Only when I finished this task did I start to get ready for my trip. Before leaving, I tried to wake up my husband to ask him to take me to the airport. I thought it would be comforting to have some support, even if it was something as basic as a simple transfer. But he completely rejected the idea. He was irritated that I woke him up early and flatly refused. I was hurt by his reaction, but I didn't have the energy to argue. Instead of insisting, I booked an Uber and left quietly. The flight seemed endless, probably because I was eager to get there as soon as possible. I was completely distraught and couldn't stop thinking about how my mother would be. When I finally saw her, I broke down emotionally. Aware of everything she was facing, my brother and I took on all the responsibilities. We organized the funeral, dividing the expenses equally. We also went through Dad's insurance documentation and legal papers to make sure everything was in order. Luckily, my father was an organized person, which made our job easier. He had designated Mom as the rightful heir to his house, so at least we don't have to worry about her losing her home on top of everything else. Managing these issues while saying goodbye to your father is not easy, but it helps to feel useful when you are going through such difficult times. As you can imagine, these last few days have been extremely hard in every respect, physically, emotionally, and mentally. It wasn't just another funeral for us. With so much going on, my brother, my mother, and I have been able to spend a lot of time together, something we haven't done for a long time. With all this going on, I haven't had the energy or the mental capacity to keep in touch with my husband, especially after how he treated me before I left. I preferred to concentrate on my family and processing my grief. But what's really painful is that he hasn't made any effort to communicate with me either. Not once has he called me to find out how I am or how things are going. This is not the first time he has acted with such indifference towards my family. In the past, he has always shown a lack of interest, not getting involved in the lives of my relatives or making any effort to connect with them. But this situation is different. It feels much worse. My father has passed away, and the least my husband could do in these circumstances is show some compassion. Even a simple, "How is your mother?" would have meant a lot to me. But he hasn't even bothered to ask. It's hard not to feel hurt by his attitude. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law has been calling me non-stop this week. Not to express her condolences or ask after my well-being, but to demand explanations. She wanted to know why I had returned to my home for a whole week, and why I wasn't coming back sooner. According to her, I was neglecting my responsibilities as a wife. My husband is an adult who is fully capable of surviving at least a week without my presence. I explained to my mother-in-law that I was at a funeral and that I rarely have the opportunity to visit my family. Both she and my husband have complicated my family visits over the years. But this occasion was completely different. It was not a casual visit. It was the death of my father. We are grieving, and I need to be with my mother and brother right now. I am not enjoying a vacation at the beach. But even after I explained this to her, she kept insisting. She was clearly looking for an argument, but I wasn't in the mood for another fight with her. I told her that I didn't care about her opinions, that I would stay with my family for as long as necessary, regardless of what she or my husband thought. I warned her that this would be my only explanation, and I hung up because I knew she wouldn't be satisfied with my words, but I honestly didn't care. However, this morning, I woke up to an email from my mother-in-law containing a 5-page PDF document. 5 damn pages with no summary. I couldn't believe my eyes. As I read on, my anger grew with each line. The message was about me, as I didn't allow her to express herself when I cut the call. She had the audacity to write about how her precious son, a full-grown adult, was suffering in my absence, and that, basically, I was mistreating her poor child. Again, a fully grown adult male. She mentioned that the meals I had prepared before leaving were neither adequate nor nutritious, and that I should return immediately to serve her hot, freshly cooked meals. She even said that my husband had called her to come and clean the house, as he never bothers to tidy up after himself. She complained that she was tired of picking up her own mess, as if that were my fault. And to top it all, she had the nerve to tell me directly that these tasks, cooking, cleaning, and running the house, were my obligations as his wife. She went on to say that I should get over my grief and go back to him. She spoke as if my father's death were a simple family reunion full of laughter. And if that wasn't enough to infuriate me, she concluded the email with a barely concealed threat. She warned that if I didn't return soon, she would convince my husband to consider leaving me, because, according to her, he could find someone much better than me. There wasn't a kind or empathetic word in the whole email, not a mention of the fact that I had just lost my father. Not a single show of concern for my feelings. Only demands and reproaches, as if my grief and the time with my family were simply inconveniences for her and her son, who, by the way, she described as useless, as she practically presented him as someone incapable of looking after himself. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the death of my father, or that they touched a sensitive spot. But I wasn't in the mood to put up with their nonsense at the moment, and I feel quite irritable. The fact that she had the insolence to send me a 5-page email while I was grieving for my father was the last straw. I was furious, not just with her, but with the whole situation. Her son is suffering because he has nothing to eat, and that's more important than my father's death. She's not even looking for a maid now. She wants a slave who will do everything she orders whenever she tells her to. I wish her luck, because it won't happen again. And to give some context, I married my husband when I was very young. He is 6 years older than me, and I think that age difference has always influenced the dynamics of our relationship. From the beginning, he has been controlling. Not in an openly aggressive way, but in a more subtle way, disguised as concern for my safety or for what he considers best for me. For example, he doesn't allow me to work. Every time I have mentioned it, he has rejected the idea, arguing that it is not necessary because he can support me financially. He insists that I share my location with him constantly, so that he knows exactly where I am. He does not allow me to have male friends under any circumstances. Even with my female friends, I cannot go out with them at night, no matter the situation. He controls a large part of my life, but he always presents it as if he was only trying to protect me or keep me safe. I recognize that, over time, I have chosen to follow his rules rather than confront him. I don't like conflict. I have always been quite shy, so it was easier for me to obey than to argue. I never had many friends, so I felt like I wasn't really sacrificing too much socially. Or at least, that's what I told myself. But looking back now, I realize that my calm nature and aversion to conflict have allowed him to dominate me, controlling almost every aspect of my life. And it's not just him. My mother-in-law is incredibly toxic and has been a constant source of stress in my life. One of the biggest problems with her has been her insistence that we have children. She constantly brings it up, putting all the pressure on me. What she refuses to accept is that the reason we haven't been able to have children is not my fault, but a fertility problem with my husband. But instead of accepting this reality, she blames me completely. She has gone so far as to tell me that if I were a real woman, I would already be pregnant. For years, I have tried not to let her comments get to me. I ignored her, repressed my feelings, and convinced myself that it wasn't worth wasting energy arguing with her. But today, when I read her email, I said enough is enough. I'm fed up with my husband, I'm fed up with my mother-in-law, and I'm fed up with the toxic relationship between them. I don't want to continue living like this, so if you want to suggest to my husband that we get divorced, go ahead. That way, the process will be easier for everyone because it's what we all want, including my mother-in-law, who shouldn't have any say in our relationship. I hope my husband doesn't beg me not to leave him afterwards. I know he didn't write the email, but he has allowed his mother to interfere in our relationship for so long that now she is the one making decisions for him. And for the first time, those decisions seem right to me. Update 1. I agree with all the comments along the lines of, "You should have left yesterday." That's exactly what I've been thinking since I got that email, although I also think I should have done it much earlier. I don't know what came over me. Maybe I was depressed throughout my father's illness, or because of the dynamics of my marriage. But I thank my mother-in-law for opening my eyes. It's been the best thing she's ever done for me. Although I would like to attribute all the responsibility to my mother-in-law, because with this she is achieving exactly the opposite of what she's looking for. The truth is that that email was not the only thing that made me reconsider everything. There was also something else very significant, especially because of who wrote it. A letter from my dad. My dad always kept a personal diary. He had been writing in it for years, and it was one of his most cherished habits. After starting treatment for his health problems, he made it clear to us that he wanted my brother and I to read his diaries one day. I think he saw it as a way of keeping us connected to him, even when he was no longer around. As my brother and I have been organizing his belongings and sorting everything out, we decided to start reading his diaries together. It was then that we found an entry from a few years ago that I felt was specifically addressed to me. Even my brother had the same impression. As soon as I started reading it, I felt a lump in my throat. It was as if my dad was talking to me through those pages, and what he wrote broke my heart. In that entry, my dad expressed how much he missed me. He talked about how he wished I would visit more often. He fondly recalled the moments we shared when I was little, like when we played cards at night, and how much he enjoyed those moments with me. He wrote about how he missed surprising me with little gifts and seeing my face light up with joy. He even mentioned how much he missed saying my name and how he longed for the times when he could call me and I would run to him, full of energy and enthusiasm. Reading his words was like being punched in the chest. I could feel his love in every sentence, but I could also feel the sadness that permeated them. I hadn't realized how much he missed me, how much he longed for those little moments that meant everything to him. And the truth is that I wasn't there as much as I should have been. Part of that was because my husband and my mother-in-law always found ways to make my visits difficult, either by discouraging me or making me feel guilty for wanting to return home. Also, without a job, I depended on him financially to be able to visit my family. At the end of that entry, my dad wrote something that stuck in my mind from the moment I read it. "It seems that you have lost the sparkle in your eyes. I hope you get it back soon." That was, together with my mother-in-law's email, what caused my sudden change. Perhaps it was latent in me, and that acted as a catalyst to release it, like a switch that was activated. In any case, my dad always had the ability to notice the little details about me, whether I was happy, sad, or simply tired. Those words made me feel that I wanted to communicate something else, to tell myself clearly that my relationship was toxic and that I was shutting down. Seeing how my husband and mother-in-law have treated me, not only over the years, but especially this past week, I can no longer deny it. My dad was right. The sparkle has gone out of my eyes. For those who ask about children, yes, I want to be a mother more than anything. I have always dreamed of having children. But as much as I long for it, I am now grateful that my husband cannot have them. The idea of creating a life with someone like him, so controlling, indifferent, and selfish, terrifies me. Even if we considered adoption or surrogacy, I wouldn't want my child to grow up with a father like that, or to be influenced by his behavior. It wouldn't be fair to them or to me. I owe it to my future children, if I ever have them, to find a better role model. So that is why I will grant my mother-in-law a divorce. And I wasn't wrong to write mother-in-law instead of husband, because this relationship seems more like a marriage with my mother-in-law, whereas my husband seems like the child we both had. That's how disturbing I see the situation now. Update 2. Today I talked to my brother and my mom about my intention to end my marriage. Part of me thought they might be surprised, maybe even try to persuade me to give my husband another chance, especially since when we got married, I was completely convinced of my love for him. But when I finally said out loud that I wanted to end my marriage, they simply exchanged glances for a moment, almost as if they had been anticipating this moment. Then my mom looked at me and said, "I'm glad you're leaving that piece of trash that even the flies don't want to go near. He was never good enough for you. Since you were so in love with him, we had to stay quiet and just accept it." Wow, it looks like you had all that stuff bottled up inside you. This reaction took me by surprise, but I'm glad my mother can express herself like that, even though she doesn't normally use that kind of language. My brother didn't make similar comments. He simply hugged me and assured me that both he and my mom would support me unconditionally, that I could ask them for anything I needed. My mom even went further by offering me to live at her house, telling me that I could move in with her whenever I was ready. Maybe I could even not go back now, because it could be harmful for me. After that, I finally decided to confront my husband and my mother-in-law to let them know my decision. I organized a video call with both of them. In another situation, it would have been just with my husband, but my marriage is not just with him. When they connected to the call and I verified that they were listening to me, I said I want a divorce, I'm leaving. They weren't expecting that statement at all. Surely they were anticipating me telling them when my plane would land so I could continue being their slave. My husband spoke, and all he could say was, "Are you joking?" He really thought it was some kind of elaborate joke. "No, it's no joke. I'm completely serious. I want to separate." That's when all hell broke loose. Both he and my mother-in-law started shouting and talking at the same time, trying to argue with me. They accused me of having lost my mind and said I was being irrational for wanting to get divorced, out of the blue, so to speak. I made it clear to them that this was far from sudden. His first reaction was to accuse me of being on my period, which is why I was making a decision that, according to him, was hormonal. Then he called me crazy for resorting directly to divorce. Then he had the audacity to demand that I pack my things and return home immediately, saying, "We'll talk when you get back." But he didn't say it in a conciliatory tone where we would solve the problems, but rather in a threatening tone like, "We will talk because you are in serious trouble." Well, his reaction perfectly exemplifies why I want to divorce him. My mother-in-law also had her own nonsense to say. She asked me if I was acting this way because of the email she had sent me. She tried to justify it by saying that it had only been a kind of performance review, to show me where I was failing and where I could improve. She was just worried about her son, and maybe she had interpreted it wrong. And to top it all off, she had the nerve to tell me that I was terrible at handling conflict, and that I wasn't thinking clearly because of my father's death. I replied, "Perhaps my judgment was clouded by the death of my father. A loss like that can provoke something like this. But at the same time, I believe that my decision to divorce is the most lucid thought I have had so far." I also made it clear to them that the call was not to discuss, but to communicate a decision already made before calling. They could shout whatever they wanted, but it wouldn't change my mind. It was then that my husband's tone changed completely. From being contemptuous and condescending, he became openly threatening. He warned me that if I did not reconsider my position, he would set fire to all my clothes and jewelry. I replied that if he dared to destroy or damage any of my belongings, I would sue him and take him to court, where he would be made to pay for every last penny. I warned him that not only would he have to face alimony, but I would make sure he compensated me financially for everything he ruined. I wasn't playing around, and he knew it. That might adequately sum up the content of the call. To all those who have expressed concern for my safety, I don't think it's necessary. My brother is a policeman. He carries his service weapon everywhere, and it wouldn't be the first time he shot it at someone. He has agreed to fly back with me to help me pack and remove all my belongings from my husband's house. I don't think he can carry his gun, but I don't think he needs it in this situation either. He is so furious about my call that he could do the same to him with his bare hands as with his gun. With him present, my husband won't be able to hurt me. Update 3. It seems incredible, but 7 months have passed since my last update. So much has happened since then, and I finally find myself at a point where I can look back with a sense of calm and accomplishment. To answer the question that many people have been asking me, yes, I finally managed to divorce my ex-husband. And let me tell you, it was not at all easy with him and his mother trying to prevent it. It has been a long and exhausting process that tested my patience and strength at every stage. They both did everything they could to delay and complicate the divorce proceedings. They extended the process as much as they could, throwing one unnecessary obstacle after another in my path, in what I can only interpret as a desperate attempt to make me give up or come back begging. What happened to all those wives that his mother could find for her son? Did she realize that nobody would want a man so dependent on his mother? Thanks to my lawyer, we were able to bring this process to an end. She handled his petty tactics with professionalism and determination, and for that I am deeply grateful to her. It feels wonderful to be free again. I know my father would be proud to see me smiling again. I didn't face this alone. My brother and my mother have given me more support than I deserve. I couldn't have handled this whole situation without them. I currently live with my mom. Not only have I moved away from that toxic marriage, but also from this city. It feels like a new beginning, a much more positive one. I no longer have to cook for anyone, clean up after anyone, or constantly be aware of other people's needs. At least not because I'm required to. I do it for my mom because she has been extremely generous in allowing me to live with her while I decide what to do with my life. Every morning I wake up without that heavy burden on my shoulders. There is no tension, no stress, no endless to-do list to satisfy someone else. I can make decisions based solely on what makes me happy. And at night, I sleep better than I have in years. Like a baby, without worries to torment me. Of course, this is no time to let my guard down, as I have been looking for work and planning my next steps. I can't live with my mother indefinitely. I will need to find my own space for my independence. But that's not what my ex-husband must be thinking. Update 4. I have some news that I found extremely funny, so I couldn't resist sharing it. Yes, I have moved out of my mother's house and now I have a job, but that's not as funny as what's been going on with my ex-husband and his mother. Now I understand everything. When my ex-mother-in-law said she would get him a better wife, I never imagined that wife would be herself. How naive I was, if the answer was right in front of me all along. But don't worry, this is not an Alabama-style case, at least not yet. What happened is that her mother moved in with my ex-husband, because otherwise the incompetent fool would not have survived on his own. She moved in with him after I had removed all my belongings. I didn't mention my visit earlier because, fortunately, my policeman brother never needed to use his training. She has been living with him, looking after him, spoiling him, and feeding him. As if that wasn't enough, she has been preparing his lunch to take to work, along with a note wishing him a good day. With love, your mummy. But that's not the funniest part. The funny thing is that note made it onto social media. From there, an avalanche of memes in the comments, emojis, and all kinds of reactions imaginable. Some asked her if her mom read her a bedtime story, or if she left the light on in case the bogeyman showed up. It could have ended there, with some simple teasing, and that was it, but his mother had to intervene and magnify the issue. She started to reply to the people who were commenting. Someone asked if his mother did other things for him, accompanied by suggestive emojis, and the mother replied that they shouldn't be jealous because they didn't have mothers as attentive as her. Then someone asked if this was part of a campaign to get people to visit her videos on the platform that starts with P, and my ex-mother-in-law wrote a very long reply, which seemed to be 5 pages long, stating that this was not a campaign. Although I doubt she understood the joke, she insisted that she was simply a mother nurturing and satisfying her son's basic needs. Sure, she was referring to food, but the author of the comment, and the 500 who reacted with funny emojis on Facebook, interpreted something very different. Finally, the post disappeared, so someone must have deleted it. Could my mother-in-law have sent a 5-page email to Facebook? Even so, the teasing didn't stop, and my ex-husband ended up quitting his job because they wouldn't stop bothering him about it. Even if he brought his own food from the cafeteria, the jokes didn't stop. Now they would joke that his mother had given him money for lunch. Surely there were other things that led to his resignation, but that is the only information I have from the few acquaintances I have at his work. Now he is not only emotionally and physically dependent on his mother, but also financially. My ex-mother-in-law has posted on her social network saying that, because of malicious people, her son is suffering from mental problems. According to her own words, because I doubt she has taken him to a specialist, he is going through a crisis that prevents him from working or eating, and she must force him to do so. As expected, the comments came back. This time, someone asked if the baby could eat solid food, or did he need to keep drinking? Well, you get the idea. I even received a comment from a person with the same name as me, but no, it wasn't me, wink wink, who said, "You've done a great job getting him a wife, but I didn't know he liked them so old." After that, he blocked me and I couldn't see what happened next. A mistake on my part, because I know that this post still had the potential for a few more days of fun. But anyway, that's what I wanted to tell you. Maybe you don't think it's a big deal, but I've had a lot of fun with this whole situation.